Granted, that may only last 5 minutes, depending on the time of day, but I try to leave work with nothing in my inbox. And that might sound absolutely crazy, but it's possible as long as you have a system. And I'm going to explain what I do here. So the first thing I do, and I use Outlook, but you can do this in any type of email system. I don't like using all of the bells and whistles of Outlook, but you can. Okay, so again, you can do any of these things. I decided, and I've heard talks given, and this is the what I ended up coming up with, is having a few things. So email to me, I don't really care about organizing the email, but I do care about knowing how I get things out of it when I need it, right? So raise your hand if you have you have a meeting in an hour and you're like, crap, I had to review those 3, attachments for that. You're searching your email to find that, right? So I knew number one, I need to organize it in a way that when I go to the meeting, I can just really quickly find everything associated with that meeting. So I created and I put @ here because it just puts it to the beginning. That's as simple as that. It's just, these are I have other folders for things. I don't think that's as important. You don't really even have to have that. I like to have that. But I want to make sure I see my events. So like my meeting, this is an old screenshot, but if you look at my email today, it has your event. And what does it have? It has all of my emails from Kim helping me get this set up. It has everything in there. So as soon as I need this meeting, I just click on it and everything's there. I don't have to search because I don't want to waste time. That's the point. And everything is done through dates. So it's not only that I can find everything, I can actually in a very quick look, oh, yep, I have this coming up. So every day I see what's coming up and I know what's going on. The second is deadlines, and it's the same thing. I just do it by date. And again, I look at it. So I look at it every day. We look at our emails every day. It's right at the top, and I just know what's coming up so that I can prepare. Then I have a few different to-do lists. I have to do this week, to do this month, and to do someday. And those are sort of self-explanatory. I have a waiting for folder. So if I send an email and I know I need response back. I mean, how many times have you done that and then that person doesn't respond and you forget because it's sort of check, you sent the email. I just put that right in the waiting for folder and I just look at it once a week. It takes about 1 minute to scan it. I then have works in progress and I have optional reading, but you can do any of those other things, whatever you'd like. There are things like SaneBox and Clean Email. Those are like apps that help organize. I don't love those because I like to, it's hard to organize all of that, a computer to do it. It's not impossible, but I'd rather I like the act of putting it in there. All right. So you might be sitting here, and I know there are, because my husband's one of them. I mean, he had so many emails in his inbox, like they don't even have a number anymore because it's too big. I think it's like 200,000 or something. I don't know what the number is, but he has too many and it doesn't even say the number. But if you are that person, you're like, well, there's no way I can do that. I have 25,000 emails in my inbox. That's not true. Again, keep an open mind. You can just create a backlog folder because the truth is, I mean, are you really going to read those 25,000 emails? No. I mean, let me just answer that for you. No, you're not. And probably none of them are that important because they would have been sent again. So you can create a folder if it makes you feel better. You can also just delete them. But if it makes you feel better, put them in here and just put them in this and try this method. And you could try it and see if it works for you. So how do I process? The first thing is I don't look unless I have time, but I'm going to get into the time limits and the times of day in a moment. But the way I do it is I do a first pass. I delete based on the subject, and you can do that pretty quick because a lot of them are spam, right? Predatory journals and whatnot. So I just delete based on it and I just know it's fine. Then my second pass are real emails, and I process in order. I don't skip. I take each message as far as I can. And, if it's going to take a long time, I'm not going to do it at that moment. But if it's something that only takes a minute, I might go ahead and do it right at that moment. I'm a big believer in just go ahead and get it done. And so essentially for the first time I decide, I delete it. Do I file it? No action needed. I mean, just need to put it, like, for example, Kim telling me about this. Okay, good. I'm going to put that in my folder. I just file it. Maybe someone gave me something to read. I just put it in optional reading because I don't always have time to read it, but I like to save it. So I just put it there. And when I have time, maybe I'll peruse the folder. I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to read that. I'm going to read that today. I pull out messages for in person. There are some messages that, maybe they're emotionally charged. Don't email back. Just say, hey, let's have a chat, because usually those emotionally charged emails are handled much better in person or by Zoom or phone or something like that. Emails are easily misinterpreted. So I think about that. Sometimes I have tasks and I need to reply now. But I think if you do that, almost all of them will be processed out of your inbox. You're almost at zero. But for the rest, you have just to ask, why can't you do it? And what do you have to do next to complete it? And that kind of gets you to the next step. And there are a lot of options to store deferred emails. You can convert it to a task. I'm pretty simple. Like, I don't have a really complex system, or at least I don't think it is. It's not technologically complex. Let me just say that. Outlook has all these flags you can do, and that's great. And you can even, I know that you can do things like remind me in a week, and absolutely, by all means, if that is your way, then do it. For me, I use pen and paper, and I'm going to explain what I do with a bullet journal. I use Fantastical, which is an app on my phone that pulls in my Outlook calendar, in my Gmail calendar. I have a Gmail calendar for our family, so I know what's going on with my kids, because I don't have a nanny. I do it, and my husband does it. We just do it together, and he works full time, so it's possible. But anyway, I just keep it simple. So I just have everything in one place. That's what Fantastical is for. And I have something on paper and pen, and I'll show you what I do in a moment. Sometimes I file it in a folder in my email. But again, there are multiple ways you can segregate it in your inbox, but you can just decide what works for you. I think it's just understanding how you're going to have a system and then following through with it. I want to just touch on like the timing of email checks, because the thing is, and I'm going to get into like deep work and shallow work. But I think that sort of makes sense, even if I just say it without any definition. Email's a shallow task. It's something you could do while you were watching Netflix, okay? It does not actually require much of your brain power to check your email, believe it or not. That's why it's actually addictive, and that's why we probably do it first thing in the morning, because it seems like an easy task, and it can make you feel really good because you've gone through 50 emails and you're like, wow, I got a lot done here. But did you? You were just going through emails. And so I'm really careful to time my email checks. I don't do it during my peak times. For me, my peak time's in the morning. And at the very end, when I talk about work rest cycles, I'm going to talk about timing. And we'll get back to that. But think about when you're going to time your email checks. You don't have to be checking them all the time, and then making sure that you're doing it at a time when maybe you're tired. Honestly, because I don't want to waste my good brain power on email. I want to use my good brain power to write my R01. I want to use it for like really important things. And I don't consider email important, but it's necessary, right? So frequency of email checks, I put this in here because I think I don't know if other people agree, but I think this is pretty true. If you only check your email like once or twice a week, then you're probably going to be considered unresponsive to email, and it's going to get difficult to kind of catch up. If you do it 2 times an hour, you're unresponsive to anything but email, because you're continually looking at this. And I call that attention residue. I didn't coin it. I think Cal Newport did. He's a mathematician, but it's attention residue. You're looking at something and you think, oh, well, you know what? I just look at it, but I get back to my thing. No, in the background, we're still thinking about that email. And so we're shifting our attention, and we're not deeply working on something because we're distracted. So I feel like 2 times a day is what I consider the zone of acceptability. I try to do that a couple times a day just to kind of check in, and I define when I do it. I think decisions ahead of time, if there was ever something I could recommend, is extremely valuable, because it takes away a lot of the choice that we have to make that really paralyzes us. So I think that leads nicely into the second thing I want to talk about, which is daily and weekly planning. And this is all about decisions ahead of time. This is something that I do. I do daily and weekly. Doesn't take very long. I would say daily, probably 3 minutes. And weekly on Sundays before the week starts, I might take about 7 minutes. I actually timed it so that I would be honest. Like we think it only takes 7 minutes, but I actually timed it this week, and I put a couple of screenshots of what I did this week. And I was on call, so I'm going to show you sort of how I think about it. The reason I think this is important is for two reasons. I always, well, I don't joke. I mean, this is true. I try to eliminate any stress I put upon myself. Okay, there's a lot of stress that is external, right? That's coming at us all the time. But there's also stress we put on ourselves. And if I have the power to take away stress in my life, I should do it. And one source of stress for me, and I don't think I'm alone, is that one, I have way too, or I used to have way too much going on in my head at one time. I have a lot of roles, like I have an AUA role. I have lots of leadership roles at UNC, like with the director of urological oncology. I have, I'm teaching residents. Oh, and by the way, I'm a mom of 2 young kids, and I'm like sort of head of the household in that regard, because my husband works full time. I don't have a nanny. Like there's a lot going on in my head. It's called cognitive load, and I know I'm not alone. But in your own life, you can consider that, right? Like how much are you holding here? That's a lot. And it's a lot of stress. The second thing is we have all of this stuff going on in our head. So that means we have like whatever, 200, 500 tasks if you really break it down. And what that creates is what I call decision paralysis or choice paralysis. Like if you get 5 minutes or 10 minutes and it's a nice little surprise, what are you going to do first? I mean, if you were like me, I would just think I would be like paralyzed. I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. I have so much going on. Like, what am I going to do in this 5-10 minutes? But those 5-10 minutes are incredibly important because we have those little windows throughout our day. I think of it like I talk to my residents about like English muffins, how they have like the nooks and crannies. That's how I see time. There are nooks and crannies of our days that we just don't see. They're beneath the surface and we just let them go. But if you can actually find those nooks and crannies and use them effectively, wow, like you really will be more efficient and get back home, that's always my goal. But whatever your goal is, you have more time for it. So I realized I needed to address those two things. And this is the way that I did it. So the first is a bullet journal. And this is the website if you're interested. There's a nice little 5-minute video on this website about what it is. I'm not saying this is the method. There are lots of other methods. Just be careful when you Google this, because there are people out there who have apparently all the time in the world, and they make beautiful pictures in the bullet journal and like make it gorgeous, and it's just so attractive. But that's not the point of the bullet journal. So don't let yourself get sidetracked. It's a very, very simple system. And I have it. I always have it. This is mine here. And I took a picture so you could see it too. You can get it. I got this for $7 on Amazon. All right. And it's basically, it has the bullet is like these little dots just to kind of organize. And it seems like, oh, this would take a long time. But remember, I'm doing this as I go. So I start with a table of contents. That's the first page. And it looks like I got a lot on there, and I blinked it out because there are people's names on it, and I didn't want to, just in case anyone didn't want their information shared, I just blinked it out. But I have really nothing to hide truly for myself. But anyway, you have a table of contents. So at any point, like if I'm working on a project for patient-reported outcomes in bladder cancer, that may be one of those, and you can see like on there 19, 40, 62. That's a project that's ongoing. And I just write down little notes from that meeting. So I always knows what is going on. And when I have the meeting, I can just flip right back and have all my notes in one place. All right. I don't have a picture because of this next thing, but the next thing is you have like a year in review, and it's just a few pages, and you put down like January, February, and you put high level dates on that. And that's important, but not like, the most important, in my opinion. Then you have another one that's just the month. Okay. And what I didn't show, and I should have, and I'm sorry about that, is on this page over here, there is like I basically put February and I put every day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 28. And I put the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just M, T, what, W, etc. And then I put big high level things on that. So I can see in a glance in that month what's going on. This is my brain dump. Okay. And there's a way to do that. Anything comes in my mind, I'm like, oh, got to just put it on. I don't have to think about what I'm going to do with it. I just put it on there. And then there's a method of like every month I go in, I might have gotten a lot done, but if I didn't, you put a little arrow and then you move it to the next month and so forth. So it's just a nice method. And then the last one is I have a weekly version where I go on Sundays for about 7 minutes and I just populate. I think I'm going to do this on Tuesday. I think I'm going to do this on Thursday and Friday. And I just kind of populate that, although I might change it day to day. And these are just notes from the week. You can do it any which way. It's very simple. I got this started in like when I heard this method in about 10 minutes and I was done. All right. And I have been using this method for probably probably 3 years now, and it's incredibly effective in taking out all my cognitive load. So my stress level went way down after using this. And there's something to be said with pen and paper. If you are not a pen and paper person, you can do this on your phone. Okay, it is totally possible. It's just, you find the way that works for you. All right, one little quick thing on writing tasks. I realized, and there's a whole system about this. There's a system called Getting Things Done, and probably at least some of you have heard about it. But one thing they talk about is writing specific tasks and breaking down tasks, because if you do, it becomes less daunting. So if I wrote on that month with my brain dump, work on grant, I mean, what does that even mean? Like, what am I doing? Well, every project has a lot of steps. I don't know how many, maybe it could range for anything like, maybe 5 steps to 200 tasks, right? But everything can be broken down into component parts. And when we do that, we can better understand what we need to do and when we need to do it. So rather than working on grant, maybe I'm going to draft my AIM-1 hypothesis, and that's what I'm doing today. Like, that's all I need to do. I just need to draft my AIM-1 hypothesis, but I know what I'm going to do. And then you have to keep up with it. That's the thing. You can have this system, but if you don't keep up with it, I mean, it's not very valuable. So that's why in a moment, I'm going to shift to rituals and habits, because it's great to have a system, but you have to be consistent. So what do? Every month, I review that list. And this will make a lot more sense if this is like something like, I'm interested in this. Again, watch that 5-minute video. I can't like do a better job than he does in this, in explaining it, but it'll make a lot more sense. But again, I just review my monthly list. And again, if I haven't done it, or there's a couple things that happen, I'm done. So I just, with that little bullet, right, I just put an X. It's still relevant, but I need to get it done next month because I didn't get it done this month. Then I put a little arrow because that means next month, and I transition it to the next month when I do that at the first day of the month. And is it a priority anymore? Sometimes you're like, that task actually, it's just not, I just don't have time to do it in the next few months, and that's okay. Well, then I actually put a back arrow, and I might put it back on my yearly folder or my yearly calendar to say, like, just reminder, look into this again. That's not that common. I think the most common is either it's done or you're going to move it to the next month. And then I review my calendar every Sunday. I go back 1 week just to see what I've done. I think about it 3 weeks in ahead. And the reason 3 weeks ahead is because there are deadlines that come up. You saw my email system. I can easily just open my email. I say, there are the deadlines. There are my 3 weeks. Oh yeah, I forgot. I have, this meeting, and I told them I'd deliver this next week. I haven't done it. Well, I know that's going to be one of my really big priority tasks for this week to finish. And it keeps you accountable. And so anything that I look on that calendar, they become to-dos, right? And I just add them to that cognitive load list where the brain dump. So that's my weekly review. It takes about 7 minutes, believe it or not. Then I have a daily planning session, and this is something I just started maybe a year ago, but boy, is this a really awesome method. I again, none of this I take credit for. heard about things and then I try them and I'll keep them if it works, if I experiment, it works. The daily planning session is great because I can plan exactly when I'm going to work and when not to. I do it on days that I'm in the OR. I also do it, of course, on research days, and that makes more sense. So no matter who you are, you can do this. And what I like about it is, remember that decision paralysis of like, I have 100 tasks? It takes that away because I've already decided the day before, these will be my tasks. And let's say you're a resident listening to this, because I actually have a mentee that we talked a little bit about how this would be operationalized as a resident. You don't have necessarily a research day, right? Well, you do at some point in the day, maybe 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes back here and there, right? Like maybe a pre-op just didn't take as long as you thought, right? Maybe. Well, every day beforehand, what are your 5-minute tasks? Just put 2 or 3 down. And then as soon as you have that come up, that's what you're going to do. I actually have a piece of paper I'm going to show you, and I keep it, I actually fold it and I put it in my pocket, my scrubs pocket, and I just keep it with me. And it just keeps me accountable. But I plan everything the day before. And this is the habit that I'm going to be talking about. I like 15-minute increments, but you can do anything you want. And I'll show you exactly how I do it. I try to identify certain chunks of work that I want to complete. And I know my biggest obstacles, and yours. Like you have to maybe you don't. Maybe it's not like on the surface, but like dig in and you'll know what your time wasters are. Mine is my phone for sure. Twitter, right? Social media, and even email. I think all of that stuff's addictive, but I'm on social media. I use Twitter, but I use screen time so that, believe it or not, I'm only allowed 5 minutes of Twitter time a day. And I don't think people believe me, but it's true. I'm not allowed. And you know what? My screen time passcode, my husband has it. I don't know what it is. And so it's kind of embarrassing for me to say, can you put my passcode in? I want to go on Twitter. So I practically never do it because I don't want to ask him. And so if I really want to go on Twitter, really, really have to, I have to actually get my laptop up, log in, go in, and it's a harder process. So I try to like outsmart myself a bit so that I know that I'm not wasting my own time. All right. So I have these templates. I'm happy to share them. They're not mine. I took them, everything's like from someone else, but I print these and I like to print front and back. I don't like waste paper. And, I write it out the day before and I put it in my pocket. But you can see Wednesday is my clinical day. I see a lot of patients. I do cystos. I do some anesthesia cystos. I do clinic, and I was on call. And so I do a few things and you'll see you'll see some rituals here. I wake up and I drink water. And actually the night before I go to bed, I fill up a big thing of water. Actually, this is it right here. So I don't knock it over, put it on my bedside table. And as soon as I wake up, I drink the whole thing because otherwise will not drink water. And especially with COVID and masks, but hydration is important and it makes me feel better. So I just do that. And right away, I'm starting out at least hydrated a bit. I exercise. And on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do like a sort of a hard workout. On Tuesday, Thursday, I do yoga. And then I get ready. I know exactly how long it's going to take. I drive in, I have grand rounds, and then I do all my stuff. I know on Wednesdays, I'm going to sign and close my charts, which is like a big priority to me because I don't like taking anything home. I plan my next day. It takes 5 minutes. I plan the Thursday. All right. Then I drive home. I do some, kids stuff. I even plan my relaxation. Like I always meditate. I always do 10 minutes. I journal. That allows me to get all of, especially this week on call, all of the things that are, irritating out of my head and on paper and gone. And then I can sleep better. And I read and I go to bed. I realized watching TV was not very relaxing. I thought it was, but it's really not. And then I would stay up late. So I just made a change. And reading's much more relaxing. I get a hot tea, read. It like kind of gets me tired and then I go to bed at 9 and I always get 8 hours. As long as, I don't get called. This week was a little bit different, but it wasn't terrible. Thursdays are more of a research day. I do see patients. So I did see some patients that day. But you can see I do a little bit of stuff with my kids in the morning when I want to, or when I can, and then some meetings. I had a little bit more deep work things that I needed to get done. So I was working on one of my specific aims. I needed to update my bio sketch. I planned my next day. It is always the last thing I do before I leave for work. And then I drive home and, again, rinse and repeat, right? I like consistency and routines. And the truth is all humans do. If you have kids, kids love routine. So it's just something to consider. I thought, I do, it's true. I do like some variety, but there are certain things in life that if you are routine, if you're consistent, it's actually very comforting, very comforting. Just like, I remember when my kids were younger, it's very comforting to know I'm going to do a bath. I'm going to then read a book and then they're going to go to bed. And when you alter that pattern, they know, and it's like sort of creates a little anxiety because you don't know what to expect. Or like, wait, I knew what I was expecting, but now something's different. And again, I was saying, try to remove some of that stress. And I think this is a nice way to do it. At least worth trying. It certainly has helped me. So now it's like, how do you choose though? How did I even make that plan? Like, what do you do first? I mean, you have 200 tasks. So what are you gonna do first, and how are you gonna choose your tasks? So this is a book that I only very recently read, I'll be honest, but interestingly, it had been something I had been doing a while. I think this book actually, and says this, he integrates a bunch of other books and a bunch of other concepts into it, but it is really short and it's incredibly impactful. The top 3 things he talks about is about this eat that frog concept. And if you haven't heard of it, it's something credited to Mark Twain, but I think actually someone else, they eventually found out it was actually coined by like some other guy. But the saying goes, if you eat a live frog the first thing in the morning, and then nothing worse is going to happen to you the rest of the day. So, basically get your worst, like the thing you're dreading most, just get that done in the morning. And then everything else is easier. And it's a really nice mantra, and it's very effective because we get more tired as the day goes on. And so your willpower to do something difficult goes down. And so again, you're creating more stress than necessary. So in the book, he talks about, number 1, your frog is your most important task. If you have 2 frogs, then you're going to eat the ugliest one first, meaning that, it's going to be the task that you're dreading the most or the hardest one. And remember, like these frogs, they're things that are high priority usually, right? I mean, sitting down and writing your R01, I mean, it is not, well, at least not for me. Maybe it is for you, but it's not easy to do that. It's a daunting task and it feels overwhelming. So I would consider that usually my frog. So if I have some morning time and I have a full research day, I'm going to probably put that first, depending on what I'm doing that day and the, sort of other priorities. Maybe I have a deadline tomorrow, so I have to put something else first, but thinking about it. The other things they talk about is to think about your goals, review them daily. It's already what I said. They talk about thinking on paper. Another thing I mentioned, they talk about always working from a list, what I talked about with the bullet journal. And then the final is that your ability to distinguish between your important and unimportant tasks, they're the key determinants of your success in work and life. I mean, everything really. So to really understand what are the things that if you put some more effort in, their rewards are going to be incredibly great. Checking email, no. I mean, how is that going to create great rewards in your life? It's not. And that's why you have to be very cautious not to spend a lot of time on it. So you just have a system, make sure you're doing it at times that it's not going to be diverting your attention when you are at your highest level. This is a book, and I think it's like another way of looking at the frog concept, it's called Deep Work, and it's a great book. But deep work is essentially the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. Whereas shallow work, which I was talking about early, email is a shallow form of work, is non-cognitively demanding. It's more logistical style work, often performed while distracted. You don't need to have an MD to perform shallow work. I mean, anyone can perform shallow work. It's just that we don't want to use our brain power in that. So really understanding which of your tasks are deep work and which are shallow, so you can plan them accordingly. And it's my opinion that deep work needs some kind of deadline. And the reason for that, sometimes we have a deadline. A grant, there's a deadline, right? And so I just wrote these out. I saw this on Twitter, but I could never find it again. So I just wrote my own little graph. But if you think about a grant, right, like we usually work in like boluses of work, and then a little bit, and then boom, right before that deadline, like we're working hard and then we get it in. Okay. But let's actually think not about a grant, but a paper. And a paper that, you don't, I mean, maybe you're passionate about the project and the subject, but you don't necessarily have a deadline. Well, what can often happen is that you work, okay, and then you forget about it a little bit. You do another bolus of work, you forget, maybe do a little bit, and then you just run out of steam. And sometimes these things don't even get across the finish line. And so without a deadline, you're not to say that you're always going to have this graph occur, but you're much more likely to. So think about what is important and then create some deadlines for it. The way that I plan my deep work is I start out by just on a piece of paper. It's a scrap piece of paper. I do this with my mentees. I do it for myself, even if I don't have someone on a project. It's rare because I really like teams, but we sit down and we list all required steps, really, really, really to the detail. Like we might say, lit search about this topic. Now let's search about that topic. Create an outline for a paper. Paragraph 1, 2, 3 for your intro. We're going to do methods, have a reviewed by a statistician, results, table shells, figure ideas, like on and on, right? So you write them all down. Then I like just draw out, again, I throw this away eventually, but I just write out on a little calendar, when do I want this done? What's reasonable with my calendar? And I just backward project the schedule. I front load it to give some cushion because especially when you're starting out, I would double the time that you think it's going to take because that's the truth. But then as you get good at it, then you actually start to do a good job of estimating. And then I do regular reviews, mid-range completion, weekly chunks, daily tasks, and things like that. I'm keeping an eye on time, so I'm hopefully going to be finishing here in just a very short time. But I want to end, with habits and then these work rest cycles. So the habits, how do you keep this all going? Well, I think that having some kind of ritual and habit is really, really important. And if you think hard, we all have rituals, like maybe brushing your teeth every day. You do it the same way. And it's important and you just do it. And the thing about a ritual or habit is once it becomes ingrained in what you do, it's actually quite easy. You don't even think about it, right? It's just there. When I drink water in the morning, I don't even think about it anymore. But when I was trying to create the habit, which I did, I created that. I thought about it. I was like, I'm dehydrated. How do I fix this? I'm like, that's what I did. And now it's become a habit. And this is a book, Atomic Habits. The idea of an atomic habit is a regular practice or routine that is small, atomic in size. It's easy and it's capable of an incredible compound growth. The difference between one person and another person is that the person who's successful, they actually created this little tiny habit, but they were consistent and they never missed a day. There's this, you probably have seen, but Jerry Seinfeld talks about this with, his success. And he said he has never broken the chain of writing a joke a day. And it might be a terrible joke, but he always writes a joke a day. For me, my chains, I always drink that water in the morning, every day. I always do some kind of physical activity. Every day. I never break the chain, even when I was on call, never break the chain, even if it's 5 minutes. That's my requirement is only 5 minutes. I don't have to do more than that. I always journal, even if it's one sentence, I have to write in it. And I always do 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation, no matter what, every day. And so those are my little atomic habits, but they've, been really helpful to me. And in the book, they talk about behavior change. And in order to create a habit, you have to be intentional. You have to think about it. What do you want to change? How are you going to do it? And you experiment. Whenever you think about the habit, you have to make it obvious, make it attractive, easy, and satisfying. So for me, when I journal, I always have a hot tea. I really like tea. So I'll always get the hot tea. And I'm actually looking forward to the hot tea, not the journaling. But it makes it easy. It makes it satisfying and attractive to me. So that's good. I keep my journal book open on my bedside, so it's obvious. And so, that's how I created that habit, for example. I think that the mistake that people, and I say people, I say me really, that I made in trying to create habits is that we start too big. Make it really, really, really small. Maybe a minute, 1 minute. Everyone has a minute. And I only do one habit at a time. If first of the year and you're trying to I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to exercise for an hour every day and I'm going to do all this, it's just not sustainable. Just do something small, do it one at a time, do it until it becomes the habit, and now add on. And that's what I've done over the years. All of this are habits. And I'm consistent. I never break the chain. There's no exceptions and there's no excuses. And then I just iterate over time. So something to consider. I have ritualized my deep work because that is not something we always do. Habits take time and effort. I define my time and place. I'm going to do it. I don't allow myself internet when I do it. I have a parking lot. So even if I say, oh, I need to look up that article, that's fine. Put it in the parking lot. You still can't look it up because then you're going to go on the internet. I know I will. And then, go on social media. And before I know it, I'm derailed. So just do all of that ahead of time. I put a sign on my door that says do not disturb. It's actually on right now, but I'm deeply entrenched in work. I turn off my electronics, etc. I also, by the way, have 1 week, 1 3-hour chunk a month that I block my calendar. It's a meeting with me. And I just go through how am I feeling? What are my goals? What do I want to change? And it's really helpful because we don't have necessarily time to do that. All right, so I'm going to end, and then we'll have just a little time for questions and thoughts and feedback and all of that. But work rest cycles. I end with this because I do think it's the most important. I told you I don't work on the weekends. I schedule and plan my breaks. I think all of these types of things are important. We just, in our culture, we just don't do them. It just was not modeled to me. One thing that's most recent for me is how I manage my vacations. I mean, put your hand up if you go on vacation and you check your work email at least one time, right? That was me for sure. And I couldn't even stop myself. Well, I decided to, and the reason the story, if we tell ourselves stories, the story I told myself, and I have a feeling I'm not alone here. The story I told myself was that it's going to take so much more time to have to deal with all that email when I get back. I'm dreading that. Then if I just kind of handle it along the way. And then one day I was like, wait a minute, where did I get that story? Just people told me. I've never tried it the other way. So I did an experiment. I decided to completely not do email for a whole week. And I wrote it in my away message so everyone knew, I am not contactable. Nope, not here. I had to outsmart myself. So I found an Outlook rule where any email that came during that time was put into this weird little vacation folder that I could not find in my email. I would find it later, but I could not see it when I pulled up on my phone. And I timed it. I took about 2 hours of my time. And or 2-3 hours of my time when I got back, I blocked it so that I would just do email, and I timed it. I literally put my timer on and I just started processing it. And I'll tell you, it only took about 2.5-3 hours, and I found a few things. One, I did a first pass of all deletes. And reading everything. What I realized, and that's important because what I realized is a lot of the things that came through that they were asking me for were solved by other people. That was a revelation. So I actually didn't have that much. I had 646 or so, and then I just took another vacation and I had 450 emails this time. So I'm always looking at this, but it doesn't take that much time. And that attention residue of thinking through it during vacation, it's not worth it. You're not resting. So I would challenge you to try that method. I love it. Love it. I won't go back. That was great. I told you I meditate. I prioritize my sleep 7 to 8 hours a night without exception. So these are some of the, types of apps that are out there for doing these types of things. Insight Timer is free. You don't need an app, but if you'd like to. And then the last thing I'll just mention, this is a book about timing. I thought it was really interesting. There's a lot of other cool things in this book, but the thing that I want to bring up here is they talk about the synchrony effect, and they've done studies across the globe, and pretty much most people have a peak, then a trough, which happens about 7-8 hours after you wake up. It's usually around lunchtime, and then you have a rebound. So there's about 10-15% people who are the opposite. So, think about that. I'm a lark, meaning that I'm really good in the morning. But think about who you are, right? But the point that he talks about in this book is you can consider a small coffee or exercise at your time of trough. So every day, I don't have it with me because it's in my refrigerator. I always have a little coffee. I always packet with me that I drink at the time of my lunch. And I always have 5 minutes break an hour. I might just stand and stretch or something, but I always do that. I always schedule it. So I want to have time, and I'm almost at the top of the hour. So my take home points, again, organizing email, creating those plans and sticking to them, having really good habits, and then planning these work rest cycles. And I leave you with these book recommendations. So if you wanted to take a quick jot of these, I thought these were really great books and ones that really changed the way I worked. So that's all I got.
Angie, thank you so much. That was great. And by the way, everyone, I took notes and I got the books. I'll send out an email to everyone so you don't have to worry. We'll get all of the recommended things. I'll just send it to you via email. I just want a couple of comments. This was very helpful. I felt like I love the Atomic Habits book. In fact, I was just thinking about buying that for all of my faculty. So I think I want to do that. One of the things you said that I find, so your comment that by excluding the weekends, it makes you more effective on the weekdays. Mm-hmm. And I think this is so true. You know how work tends to expand to the time that you allot for it. And so if you give yourself, an hour to do, task X, you'll spend that whole hour doing it, whereas you could probably do it in 15 minutes. Right. And so that's something that I really think affects all of us. We kind of tend to expand the amount of work for that time allotted. I'm glad you talked about vacation. So I wonder, some people have said that 1 week is not enough. And I wanted to know, how much time do you spend on vacation? And if you tried 2 weeks, what are your thoughts on time and amount allotted for vacation?
Yeah, I think everyone's different. I mean, and you have to start thinking of like where you're coming from. When was your last vacation? How much do you really need to disconnect? I'm in a place, where I've been doing these work rest cycles for quite a long time now. So I try to have a vacation at least every few months. So I try to, I actually time them with like my kids' spring break or, summer. I always take off the holidays, always. So, I have like a system by which that I know I'm going to have a week off. So I like more of like the consistent nature of it rather than big chunks. Now, if you're coming off of like burnout, like I was back then, I think 2 weeks probably makes a lot of sense. Or maybe you know yourself and you need the 2 weeks. But I think 1 week is enough for me at the moment, particularly when I actually disengage. I mean, that's the thing. I had only done that the last 3 vacations of not doing email. And oh my gosh, it's interesting. Let me tell you, this is like a personal thing, but like when I was an intern, surgery intern, I got this twitch in my right eye because I was working like this particular rotation was just horrible. And I developed this twitch in my eye and it went away after that. But every now and again, it comes up, even if I don't feel like I'm stressed, but I haven't been on vacation. And it's like this interesting signal my body has. And I just got off a vacation like a few weeks ago. And the most interesting thing is it came up like just a few days before my vacation. I was like, oh my gosh, it's right on time. And then within 2 days of my vacation, it was gone and it's been gone. Right. So know your body, like know how you're feeling, and then you kind of adjust accordingly. But yeah, I think it just depends on where you're at.
Well, so if anyone has questions, maybe you could raise your hand. I see Jesus Herrera's hands up, but maybe that's just left up from the.
No, but I did have some questions. I thank you so much for doing the talk. I'm one of the residents, and I think a lot of what you talk about, a lot of us have thought about it. And the thing that resonates with me is that, residency's hectic, so you're always trying to find schedules. Mm-hmm. You're always trying to make schedules in your life. And I've made tons of them. I just, I feel like every time I come short or I overschedule myself and then I don't come through. So one of my questions was, how do you, when you're going through this process, how did you build yourself? So like, let's say you make a schedule for, a deadline, you have like a test or a big project, and putting time frames, which I've learned that it really helps kind of like what you've been talking about. And, you know, you maybe take more time or you kind of fall behind. You have a safety sort of catch up day or something. Because I feel
Yeah.
like every time I fall behind, now I'm stressed about being behind, and then I never feel like I catch up. And then my
Right.
whole schedule that I spent, you know, a whole day trying to see if I can get it done just kind of derails.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I've struggled with it myself. Here's what I've done that's been effective for me. The first thing I'll say is that this gets better with time. I'm really good now. I mean, since I've done this for like years, and now when I write something, I'm almost always correct in the amount of time it takes. But that's because I've practiced that over time. When I first started, I was usually wrong, and then I was getting into this cycle of feeling anxious, right? So I'll harken back to like one of my slides where I said I backward project, and I break it into really small component parts. If you're struggling, I would say, I mean, so sort of like a physician in diagnosis, right? Like my diagnosis, my hypothesis of like what's going on in the differential here is that you're not breaking it down into its component parts. Like that's probably the number one factor. And the reason that that's so important is because when you break things down, it's much easier to predict time. Think about it, because if you have like a major task you need to accomplish that is made of 100 tasks, think about that. Are you going to be better at estimating the entire project? Because you have to estimate 100 all at once, or you're going to estimate one at a time. Like, you know, it makes a lot more sense about the one at a time because it's such a small little thing that you can say, well, yeah, that's going to take it. I'd say at the very beginning, I realized I was creating this anxiety. So I doubled everything I wrote down. I doubled it. It was just doubled. I was like, I say this takes a day, it takes two. You know, I tell that to my mentees, and it's actually pretty effective. We usually half the time that we think it's going to take. That's pretty when you're beginning. And then as you get better, you can adjust. So, and the third thing I said before is I front load. So I might even add a couple, you know, what you had said, a couple catch up days in case I didn't, in case I didn't like, you know, catch up or do something. But then the last thing I'll say is that, you know, look at why you didn't. Did you actually commit to, like, this is my paper for today. Like you guys are on it, right? You know, right here. Did you actually do what you said you were going to do? Because I'm not saying you didn't, but like, if you were like me, I didn't. I wasn't actually doing what I was saying I was going to do. I was on social media or I checked my email. I did something I wasn't supposed to do. Okay. So really look and hold yourself accountable. I have kids, so I think about it that way. We talk to ourselves, like the voice we have can be very harsh, or at least I have a harsh voice to myself, like stupid, like you said you're going to do and you didn't. You know, I don't do that anymore. I talk to myself like I talk to my child. I'm like, of course you don't want to do it. Like I understand, like nobody wants to do this, but you know, but this is what we got to do today. So let's go ahead and get it done. You know, we'll have a good day and then you can do whatever else I wanted to do later. And that works for me. I still say that in my head to keep myself accountable. It works. So I don't know if those are going to be helpful, but those are some things you could try if you're struggling in that regard.
No, thank you so much. They're definitely helpful. You know, obviously, yeah, I agree with you. There's some times where you're like, oh, I didn't get it done because I got distracted with multiple things. And I should have just blocked that time or put my phone on silent to complete the task. Um, the other question I was going to ask you, you know, sometimes, you know, obviously you talked about stressors and how they tag on, and stress is good, but too much stress is bad. So when you're, you know, I feel like when I'm on call or I have a hard call week or coming up, you know, the buildup of anxiety, and maybe that's just residency and maybe it never gets better. Maybe it does. I don't know. But, you know, how do you keep on continuing with your tasks? In my mind, I make it simple and I just say, okay, I'm on call. That's all I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it more and more that's, you know, not sustainable, and
right.
maybe family suffers with that. And so how do you cope with, okay, you have 5 days and you still, I guess, just kind of comment on that. How do you organize yourself when it's something out of the ordinary, right? You get called overnight, now you don't sleep. How do you continue the day? How do you organize that part of your life?
Yeah, so I didn't, this is a great question, and I'm glad you asked it because I didn't put it in this talk, but I actually think it's really important. Some might say I'm a little like I'm unconventional because this is going to sound a little odd, but it's true. I'm married to a neuropsychologist. That's like I should have put that in my disclosure. So, but the thing, so here's the thing, and this is an actual like cognitive behavioral therapy type thing. There is a model, by the way, in terms of the way we view the world. And by the way, like what you're experiencing in residency, it doesn't go away. It's still there in it. Like this is never going to go away. Meaning that like if you keep going the same way you go, it's gonna still be there. So what can change? Well, just you. I mean, the environment's still there. We still have to see patients. None of that changes. It's really us who changes the way we think about it. So I'll give you a great example. Wednesday. Wednesday is like I call it Wild Wednesday, and I'm on call. I didn't change my schedule, and my scheduler accidentally opened up an additional template. So I had I saw on Wednesday 10 more patients than my record in the past. And I was on call. I had two emergency. Anyway, I knew in that morning, I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a tough day. Now, when I used to do is I used to wake up and I was like, this is gonna be an awful day. Like, and I would dread it, right? I mean, who wouldn't? I have that many patients to see. How am I gonna get this done? But now I think about it differently. I think, wow, like this is cool. Like this is I'm gonna hit a record today and I'm gonna get it done. How am I gonna do it? We know the work gets done, right? Like, so that's not a question. I'm gonna get it done. It'll be fine. It might be a little challenging, but maybe I learned something along the way. Maybe I'm more efficient than I even thought I ever was. So I started that day with like a really good attitude because my thoughts create how I feel about them. What we feel about our environment creates basically the actions we take. Think about that. And then the actions we take create our results. And guess what? I saw all of those patients, never have seen that many in my life. I saw all those patients. I finished every single note, closed them at 5 because I said I was going to do it. My brain was like working. I had like a little powwow with my resident. I was like, listen, it's going to be a tough day. Let's go ahead and work on this way. You're going to see these patients. We're going to do this. We just had a plan first thing in the morning. Everyone was super motivated, right? Rather than despondent about like, it's going to be a really tough day. We were like motivated and we got it done. So I think that a lot of what we do depends on the way we see the world. And it all starts here in the way we think. And I know that might sound to some a little like frou-frou, but it's actually really effective. Just a really tiny change in the way we think can change it all. And the sooner that you can practice that's why I journal, by the way. That is exactly why I journal. The sooner you can do that and practice that every day, the easier days will become. Because we think things happen to us, but they're a lot more in our control than we think they are. And as soon as you start thinking that things are in your control, you're going to feel a lot better about your life. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you, kind of mentality.
Great. Angie, do you have time? We have one more question,
Yeah.
Dr. Cooper, and maybe Dr. Samuelson, I'm not sure, but Robert, you have a question?
Yes, sir. I kind of was jotting some things down as Dr. Smith went along. Dr. Smith, you've clearly kind of, worked on this over years and perfected it. I think that a lot of Jesus's anxiety would be relieved if you could just forward him your board studying scheduling schedule.
I projected that one, by the way. It's just like I did. I started that even back then. So just backward projection.
I guess the couple questions that you kind of answered the one, at least I think, in theory, but I as you go through the day and you hit traffic for 10 minutes and you've blocked off your day so precisely, is that something that like now you're 10 minutes late for all of your other plans or, or do you just kind of kick something out? I mean, that I feel like I would be even more stressed with all these almost like deadlines. And it sounds like you just worked on getting it and leaving room for things like that. But
yeah, so this is a really good last question because it actually integrates both of those questions together, the last two. Yeah, I do. I put a little extra time because remember, I always take like a 5-minute break at the end. So I over budget my time for each task. And when I over budget, what allows me to do is sometimes I have a little time to check my email, which I will, like I'll do like a 2 times a day type of thing. So maybe I'll use that. I take a stretch or something. And then sometimes like it takes the entire hour and that's okay, you know, if it was an hour thing. But I don't worry if I don't get it all done. It's okay. And the reason I say that is because it's, again, it comes back to that. I didn't talk about in the talk, but I just talked about in the last thing. It's about the way we think. I'm like, you know, compassionate with myself. Hey, I'm doing pretty good here. You know, it's okay. I may not always get everything done that's on this list. And oftentimes I don't. Like yesterday, I didn't get everything done on my list yesterday. It's true. But remember the bullet journal, I say I put a little arrow to the next day or the next month or whatever. On the weeks, like when I have each day, I just put an arrow to the next day. I'm just going to carry it over. It's okay. Then I just put it on the next day. But I will tell you, without having a plan, or at least for me, I mean, I experimented with this. I did it without it and I did it with it. Having the plan of what you're going to do, I mean, for me, I've become way more efficient about what I do and getting it all done. Do I always get it done? No. And I also manage my thoughts that I don't beat myself up if I don't. That's okay. Hey, I'm doing a lot better than I used to do without any list at all, right? 10-minute in traffic, like I can't control that and I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to let it ruin my day. Just like a patient or, you know, a consultant who, you know, just yesterday was apparently having a really bad day. I talked to her, I'm like, you know, we can choose to let that ruin our day or we could just go on our day. It's okay. I mean, just let it go. And I think that's where mindfulness actually helps because that's what it cultivates is the ability to have a thought and let it go. And that is a great example. May not get it all done. You may miss something because you know, something came up. I was on call, like that happened a lot, right? It's okay. I was on call. I still held myself, you know, accountable. I tried to do some things when I could. And if I couldn't, that's all right. I'm just gonna let it go and we're gonna do it tomorrow.
If you had 1 or 2 things to start with, since obviously all of this, like, you know, you can't do all these changes at once. What do you think would be like the biggest changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what has helped me the most is having, having a bullet journal. That's like a big one. So I don't know if you want to start that, but like having some kind of system, I don't feel like it, you know, it's all relative. For me, it didn't take long to create this system. I mean, I just, on a Saturday, I was sitting down and I was like, just started organizing some things. I'm like, I think I'm going to start a bullet journal. And I just did it. And it took about an hour to set it up. And then like, you know, years later, I'm still using it. So I would say having a method to have that cognitive load, take it all out and put it on a piece of paper and always have it there or on your phone, doesn't matter, whatever you want. The other thing is having a daily schedule of, you don't necessarily have to do it like I did it, right? Every 15 minutes. That's okay. Don't do that if that doesn't seem right. But at least the day before, knowing what you're going to do the next day. Maybe 3 high-level tasks that you intend to accomplish the next day is better than nothing. So I would say start with having a daily plan and ritualizing that. And then you said 2 or 3 things. So I'm going to take you on that and say the third thing, which is examine your life and like think, what is hard for me, you know, and just sit down for like 15 minutes or whatever, maybe while you're driving to work and think like, why is that hard? And is there something really little that could help me with it? And then develop a habit around it. I mean, you have to be thoughtful about it. Like the water thing, I had to think like, well, I have to go get the water in the morning, which I'm not going to do, by the way, because I just woke up. I just don't do that. It wasn't effective. But what I can do, and I'm like, I can get a water the night before. So as soon as I wake up, it's right there and I drink it. That was really effective. So like thinking through what is that one thing that might make a big change and then commit to it for 30 days to see how it goes. It might not be a good change for you, but it very well might be a really meaningful one. And it's like compound interest. Those little changes build up. It's like it's what builds like these, you know, these systems. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Angie, thanks so much. I think all of us would really want to stay on and just get more of this great therapy, honestly. But but we have our schedules to stick to. So,
That's right.
but anyway, thank you very much, and have a great day. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, same. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks for the great discussion. So, all right, take care, everyone. Have a great Friday and a good weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.